Terrific. Let's go ahead and bring the July 27, 2021 council meeting order. Please rise for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Oh, great. Thank you, everyone. Roll call, please.
Mayor Johnson.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Carter.
Here.
Member Dole.
Here.
Member Ishmael.
Present.
Councilmember McClymon.
Here.
Councilmember Swatman.
Present.
And Councilmember Watson.
Here.
All right, thank you very much. So agenda modifications, the one thing before I get into that, we do have the staff, we need to pull item A from the Finance Committee discussion for more. We have some language we need to look at that's in that contract. So that's being removed from the agenda tonight. After that, agenda modifications, anybody have agenda modification other than Deputy Mayor Evans? So we're going to swap. Is the agenda modification, Deputy Mayor, to have the shine for Isla to be first, and then the Pride be second? Is that what I heard earlier? No?
Yes.
So we're good as is?
No, sir. This can be made.
So we have no agenda to the modifications on, so we can move forward.
Mr. Mayor,
You cannot hear us.
we do have to swap them. For some reason, he's not going through.
My microphone appears to be not working. But yes, please swap 1 and 2.
Swap 1 and 2, okay. So Kathleen, do we need a motion for that?
If it's just switching the order, that seems minor enough that it wouldn't need a formal modification. There's a consensus.
All right, terrific. We'll definitely do that. All right. Seeing nothing else, then we'll move forward. So we have the proclamation tonight. First off, we have Shine for Isla, Be the Sunshine Day in honor of Isla Rue Cameron. Whereas Isla Rue Cameron was a 10-year-old girl living in Lake Tapps who was full of happiness and joy. It radiated from her, and it was contagious. It touched everyone who encountered her with her smile, her unique way of looking at life, and by all of the good she put into her community and the world. And whereas on September 12, 2020, Isla passed away suddenly in her sleep. The Shine for Isla Foundation was founded to honor her and raise awareness about sudden unexplained death in childhood and sudden cardiac arrest, including CPR training and AED installation and usage. Whereas Isla had a deeply caring and grateful heart and wanted to make a difference. She was always lifting people up, doing nice things for others, and encouraging people to be themselves. And whereas now we carry her torch. During this trying time for many, now more than ever, we have the power and the ability to lift someone up. We can make our community and the world a better place one by one. As make people smile, have fun, bringing people together, to laugh, to celebrate, including individuality. Help us continue making her life matter by putting some love and joy out that day. Now, therefore, I, Neil Johnson Jr., Mayor of the City of Bonney Lake, do hereby proclaim July 30, 2021 as Shine for Isla, Be the Sunshine Day, and invite the community to celebrate Isla Rue Cameron and participate in this special day in honor of her 11th birthday. Thank you, Isla. All right. We have the second proclamation. Recognizing July 2021 as Pride Month in the city of Bonney Lake and celebrating LGBTQ plus members of our community and their families. Whereas the Pierce County Council has declared July as LGBTQ plus Pride Month, the month chosen as the time Bonney Lakers have celebrated with our neighbors in Tacoma for over 20 years. Whereas the city of Bonney Lake is a place of equality and inclusion where we strive to maintain a community of love and understanding. And whereas we encourage relevant and vital conversation about what it means to love each other, understand our differences, and support our LGBTQ friends, family members, and neighbors. And whereas we can strengthen resilience in the LGBTQ plus community through family and community inclusion, and by giving LGBTQ plus community members support, respect, understanding, and friendship. Despite progress, the LGBTQ plus community continues to face discrimination, harassment, hate speech, and violence. And whereas we welcome members of all communities to join our diverse city. Now, therefore, I, Neil Johnson Jr., Mayor of Bonney Lake, where dreams can soar, do hereby proclaim July 2021 as LGBTQ plus Pride Month in Bonney Lake. All right. Moving forward, we do have a public hearing this evening. Sadie, could you read that, please?
Mr. Mayor, this is
Oh. I don't hear it. Anybody?
Sorry about that. Mr. Mayor, this is a public hearing on Resolution 2963 for adopting the 2022-2027 six-year transportation improvement plan.
Terrific. I'll declare the hearing open. Is there anyone signed up, Sadie?
The city clerk's office has not received any communication that relates to the public hearing.
I'm sorry, say I didn't. What'd you say? So the public hearing's open. Is there anyone signed up?
No, there isn't.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing none that's signed up for this, anyone coming forward? Seeing none, we'll declare the hearing closed. Thank you very much. Now we have citizen comments. This is your chance to speak to the city council on city business. You have 5 minutes, and please state your name and address for the record. And we do have a sign-up sheet that was provided. And first up, we have Michelle Bratt.
My name is Michelle Bratt. I'm at 7720 210th Avenue East, Bonney Lake. Mayor Johnson and council members, I was prepared to comment today urging you to sign the Pride Proclamation. And I'm excited that I get to instead give you my backup comments since you already did so. Mayor, I want to express my gratitude for you having both the strength and the humanity about you to not only express that you accept and value our LGBTQ citizens and neighbors, but that you signed this proclamation in spite of what must have been a significant amount of organized fear and hate sent your way by some residents and unfortunately some council members. This is an historic occasion in Pierce County, as we are now a city taking a leadership role in demonstrating how to welcome, appreciate, and acknowledge the intrinsic value of humans from marginalized communities. Today in Bonney Lake, no longer is a neighbor's value determined by their gender identity, their sexual orientation, or who they love. Today, the city welcomes in a new era of true inclusivity, celebration of diversity, and proudly announces that as the world and humanity progress, so shall we. Speaking up for our neighbors is important. Supporting citizens must always be a priority. Acknowledging that marginalized groups, such as the LGBTQ community, face discrimination, violence, hate, and ignorance, even sometimes from their own families and support systems, and can suffer the effects of that negativity in all parts of their lives. The acknowledgement of that is not the problem. The hate itself is the problem. Awareness that the problem exists and taking steps to combat it in our city, that's the start of the solution. That means we are growing as people. It means we value all of our neighbors, that we value all human beings, and that we are ready to listen, to learn, and now to grow together as a community. I would now like to address the remainder of my comments to those who expressed opposition to this proclamation, including the members of this council who chose to stay silent on the matter rather than come forward and align with it. Because staying silent when you are talking about the persecution of your constituents and not having the strength of heart to actually agree that citizens of our city should not be discriminated against, threatened, shunned, overlooked, or ignored, that says a lot about you. You represent all of the neighbors in our city, not just the ones who look like you, who have a family like you, or who live in a house like yours. You should be serving this community in ways that truly do have the power to positively affect children, teens, students, parents, and adults from all walks of life. If you can sign your name to a partisan political mask proclamation, but you can't sign your name to something that will literally save lives from suicide or aggression by combating stigma and encouraging diversity, I want you to know that your silence speaks volumes and is just as loud as the hateful words that were written, spoken, and shouted by so many this week. It will never, ever be the right thing to align yourself with hate, racism, bigotry, fear, conformity, judgment, threats, violence, or emotional abuse. Never. Today, Bonney Lake starts a journey where we hold ourselves to a higher standard. We will acknowledge citizens of all races, genders, orientations, backgrounds, religions, and we will honor everyone by acknowledging the value of diversity in our growing city. This is day one. I look forward to many days, months, and years of progress to come. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Pablo Monroy.
Hello. Hello, my name is Paul Monroy. I live in 9002 108. I want to thank the mayor for recognizing July 2021 as LGBTQIA Pride Month. This means so much to me and to the community. And I hope it's the first of many proclamations that recognize the amazing groups that make up this incredible and diverse city. Diversity is what makes us strong. It keeps us together. It adds to the story of this being the city where dreams soar. With this proclamation, we now know that the motto is meant for all of us. Mr. Mayor, I understand the incredible pushback you received due to this. In social media, posts were shared saying, quote, embracing this adult ideology trickles down to our children. They ignore that there are LGBTQIA kids who live in the shadows, afraid to come out. I was that kid. I was kicked out of my home. I was sent to live with my biological father in Idaho, where at the time gay acts were illegal. I was beat up in school for this, and but still was given hope. That same year, the Supreme Court ruled in Lawrence v. Texas. Seeing how good defeats evil in the highest of places, I enlisted to serve this nation. I served in the military despite going national help and deployed twice with honor. There were a couple times that I was even punched for who I was, but I couldn't say anything at the time. So after my enlistment, I fought for the right to be in the military, openly. Now with that law and ash heap of history, I, now today, still serve in the Army National Guard. We took our rights to the voters and won. We took it to the courts and won. Through these fights, yeah, I've been threatened, but I still stood proud for what we won, basic rights. What I went through is just one story. There are so many more within our LGBTQIA community with similar stories. I'm sorry, what we went through was not the same as an ice cream group. In reference to the post earlier, the only argument they had is based off of fear. This proclamation brings an antidote to that. Hope. Scars heal. Those fixed from abuse in the past. Reasons this proclamation matters is to celebrate what we survived, the freedom we won. The new forms of prejudice will arise. Take a look at the struggle that we went through and learn how we fought back. I'm inspired by the civil rights movement's past, with the words of Dr. Martin Luther King saying, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." We must bring to light that darkness that some people feel. Last week, one council member spoke, trying to find reasons to table this, something so meaningful, and we should shed light on that darkness. We're here, we've always been here, and we matter. We're in the military, we're business owners, some are police, some are firefighters, some are parents, and all of us matter. You're told to ignore us by the use of procedure, even use public comment, which has never been demanded in a proclamation before. We must bring to light for what it is and defeat this darkness and fight that hate with absolute love. Mr. Mayor, I know you received several prejudice-filled reasons not to sign. And that is exactly why what you did today means so much. Because the same heart that hates based off of race, hates off of class, that hates off disabilities, is the same heart that hates based off of homophobia. Okay, Mr. Mayor, I thank you for standing up for that. I'm standing up to that hate. I'm pleased that the majority of the council members have reached out individually supporting this. The majority, 4 council members, has chosen to recognize, support, and love the people they serve. 2 remain silent. However, you know me. You've known me for years. I know that you're not filled with hate, and I know that you appreciate freedom when freedom is won. Even though homophobes will come out dressing up this prejudice and values, and soon I hope that Black History Month will be recognized in the city, the racists will still come out and say the whole community does not support this. I hope that you will then at least stand up then against them. Celebrate the diversity for who they are. No, it is not grandstanding. It's actually important. Because of who I am isn't political. Know me. I just want to make Bonney Lake a better place. Later today, you'll hear how I want to give the youth a sense of ownership in their own city by naming a park. This is the good that comes when Bonney Lakers come together, because Bonney Lake is made up of so many outstanding groups with such a rich history coming together. Last week, seeing Barracuda at Tunes at Taps, no matter who they were, because we make each other better. Now, knowing this, although I don't think this disgusting rhetoric of prejudice has a place in a polite society, I invite you to reread the comments made, the emails sent, what people say, because we face that every day. Think of me. Think of us standing here before you. I understand this proclamation means today that hate has no place here. So to everyone, I'd like to say, Happy Pride.
All right. Next up is, I hope I do this right, Leah Tim McKenrick.
I had prepared from my heart. I want to say thank you. I've chosen to raise my family here in Bonney Lake. The fact that I get stares, I get comments, and whispers from the community members. Those of you that don't know me, I'm running for city council. Because of this, we face hate, discrimination. We face this on a daily basis. It needs to stop. The hate that came out this week from the citizens in this community over this proclamation show how deeply important this is to this community, to me, to my family, my friends, to the people in this community who hide who they are because of that fear. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you stood up for this week. It means the world to the community here at large. So thank you.
right, thank you very much. Whitney Ehrman?
Hi guys. Gotta take this off and vaccinated, so don't worry. Hi, I'm Whitney, and I've been a tax-paying resident of Bonney Lake for the last 15 years, which is nearly half of my life. This entire time, I have lived in fear of who I am, who I'm married to, and that's not okay. It's not acceptable. That's half of my life. I've had to live with these hateful comments, bigotry, discrimination. And so I want to thank you, Mayor, personally for signing this. This is one step closer to the world that we deserve to live in. So back to what I have written. I have 3 beautiful children, 2 dogs, and I'm happily married to my wife for 7 years this October. An email sent to the council stated that you serve all of the community members. Having an official Bonney Lake Pride is absolutely essential to not just my family, but to many, many other families in our town. I am disturbed that the LGBT youth are almost 5 times as likely to have attempted suicide compared to the heterosexual youth. I am disturbed that 40% of transgender adults reported having made a suicide attempt. 92% of these individuals reported having attempted suicide before the age of 25. If Bonney Lake Pride saves even one LGBT member of our community, then I personally feel like our tax dollars were well spent. I believe that LGBT youth and all people in this community deserve to be supported and affirmed in their identity and have meaningful access to resources and supports that will allow them to thrive. Many of those that I was denied. LGBT youth and children and families too often experience trauma due to bias and discrimination, including within their family, their communities, and from public systems designed to serve their needs. For example, a community member stated, and I'm paraphrasing here, "You are little idiots, and the pride flag should only be flown in Tacoma or Seattle," which is a bigoted and honestly an offensive statement, especially for my family and for me. Really disappointing seeing those emails, honestly. I should not have to travel outside of my hometown where I have grown up, where I'm raising my children, to be supported and affirmed in my identity and to have meaningful access to resources and supports that will allow myself and my family to thrive. You know, basic human rights. As a town, we should honor all identities of children, youth, and families, not just some, or the ones who are the loudest, the ones that are the most ugly. This is the first step to show our local children, youth, and adults that they can live their personal truth and to celebrate their sexual and personal identity without fear of repercussions, harassment, or worse, which is honestly why I've been terrified to speak up until now. Our societies and our families and our communities should be allies. Thank you, Councilmember Justin Evans, for being a true ally and for being the change we needed in this world, in this community. It may seem small to some, but having a Pride Proclamation signed today means the world to my family and many, many other LGBT plus families and youth that reside in Bonney Lake. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have anyone else to speak to the good of the order? I don't see any. All right, we'll move along then. Correspondence, Sadie?
Mr. Mayor, we actually had 2 citizen comments
Oh, okay.
from Ron Crawford asking to be read into record.
Okay.
The first one is, only comment regarding this is that you please consider traffic implications. 410 and the road coming around Lake Tapps due to 167 backup are very heavy during peak times. What we need is relief versus potentially adding to the problem. Ron Crawford. The second is, I realize the need in a pluralistic society that there are alternative opinions and ways of living. That, to me, is different than celebrating those alternatives or giving an implicit or explicit government sanction. The lifestyles celebrated in Pride Week are considered offensive by some, and thus the celebration of them in official capacity also offensive. Stated differently, what private individuals do on their own regarding whether to celebrate Pride is their own business. I believe it is not something that the city, in official government capacity, should promote. Thanks for the consideration, Ron Crawford.
All right, thank you, Sadie. So we have no more correspondence, correct?
We have correspondence now.
Okay.
We received 6 emails that was shared prior to the meeting with the mayor and the council. From Troy Christensen, Executive Director of the Rainbow Center, Cheryl Marshall, Lori Cancro, and Jay Stanfield supporting the Pride Proclamation, and Gwendolyn Fullerton and Joy and Don Buss opposing the Pride Proclamation.
All right, is that all?
Yes, sir.
Terrific, thank you very much. All right, we'll move along now. We have council committee reports. Finance committee, please.
Mr. Mayor, Finance Committee met tonight. We had a personnel update. As far as recruitments go in public services and public works, there are many seasonal laborers that have been hired on to other positions. So another round of interviews will be being conducted on the 27th with 7 applicants. Maintenance worker 1 and 2 has 4 candidates, which will be interviewed on the 29th. Meter reader, there are 47 applications that have been reviewed. 11 have been forwarded to the department for review, and 5 candidates have been selected to participate in the interview process on 8/2. In public services and admin, a permit tech 1, 3rd round of interviews have been conducted on the 26th, and I hope a successful candidate will be hired from the interview process there. In finance, accounting specialist 1 and 2 have 2 internal applicants that were interviewed today. On courts, there is 1 candidate for bailiff that was interviewed today as well. And recreation before and after school directors, there are still 4 needed. And assistants with multiple needs, interviews will be held on 8/2 until the positions are filled. In police officer 2 police officer candidates are currently in the background process. And in some other news, lost my train of thought. Tentative agreement has been reached with the police guild for non-sworn staff, and talks are continuing with ASME on remote workplace policy certifications for maintenance workers. We had a discussion on the bailiff contract, which was pulled from the agenda today for further legal review and consideration. Most likely it'll be back next Tuesday for a review, discussion, and action item at a workshop. Before moving on, I want to thank Melissa. She's done a lot of the work in all this recruiting. I know right now it's super difficult to find anyone to fill these jobs, and she's been doing a great job. So thank you, Melissa, for all that. We had an approval of our meeting minutes. We had open discussion on the tax revenues that have been received in Q1 for this year, and we had a discussion on some catalytic converters with the Public Works Department. We adjourned, and that was it, sir.
Terrific. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Evans. Community Development Committee, please.
Mr. Mayor, the Community Development Committee met on July 20th. Several items of business. They include a report from Sullivan about the East Development regulations. They'll be coming forward to a future council workshop. I would encourage my fellow council members to take a close look at all those development regulations for that east town area. They're significant, and a lot of work went into those, so we provide some detail against those. Also, business items include Resolution 2952, which is award of professional services agreement for RH2 for the design effort for moving the basically the SCADA system, the master telemetry Public Works over there to the new Public Works facility to get proper antennas and everything in line so that the system can function over there. Also, award professional service agreement with alternate evaluation for the Granger Springs well house down there on the side of the hill. You know, they're looking at whether they need to move it or change the structure of it, or what the best placement would be for that kind of on the side of the hill there. It's Granger viewed as a. They'll come back with some alternatives for review. Also, Resolution 2956, the professional services agreement for the construction material testing for the Tacoma Point Reservoir replacement project up and around the north end of the lake. Of course, there's some technical issues where they need to make sure they get all the compaction and all that correct. So we want to make sure that we first look at that. Approval of the professional service agreement with parametrics for environmental permits for Allen York piece. That's just for that particular area of the park where, you know, the boats are parked and what have you. And also they need to get all the permits ready for that, and approve professional services for Bruce Dees with the same Allen York, just the piece, that one part of the park. And they'll have hopefully the package together, so that'll make the bid package all ready to go out to bid for finally for that Allen York piece that everybody's been working on, the park board and everything's done a lot of work on that, so it'll be nice to get done here in short order. Hopefully finally, just the one piece. So make sure, I'm not talking about the whole park, just one piece, just one. Okay. Lots of needs, but we can do a piece at a time. Resolution 2960, which is the bid for the High Hill construction, you know, where they redid that and added some alternatives in there for considerations for the steps and everything. Come out there with that grant that we want to capture. Authorization also for the Transportation Improvement Board grant. It's a 410 roundabout. Yep, 410. That was recommended for your discussion this evening. You know, that's on your full agenda for a reason, so we can discuss that. Also, a public hearing will be scheduled for adopting this transportation improvement plan, which we just did, and we'll have to take in all those comments and then figure out what we want to do. And then approve our mini minutes that we had our committee open discussion, and those were our items of business that evening.
Terrific. Thank you, Councilmember Swatman. Public Safety Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have not met. Our next meeting August 10th, 30 upstairs.
All right. Terrific. Thank you, Councilmember Carter. Any other reports? Seeing none, we have the consent agenda. Motion to approve. Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We'll move along down. I believe we pulled the Finance Committee issue. We now have the Community Development Committee issue. Sadie.
Mr. Mayor, this is Resolution 2962. Council motion would be to approve this resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the Transportation Improvement Board grant application for the future State Route 410 to 14th Avenue roundabout.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Councilmember McClymans.
Go ahead.
Yeah, it was not clear to me from the roundabout that the cost delta between adding lanes versus roundabout, it was not clear what that was. I had trouble trying to figure that out. So can anybody explain that to me?
Anybody on staff?
Yeah, I guess I need a little bit more when you're talking about the Delta 4.
Between not doing a roundabout, changing the intersection. So the intersection is a problem, the way I understand it.
Yes.
And we need to address it. And the state has said roundabout is the best solution. But there is an option to put in 2 turn lanes, right?
That option is actually off the board. When we did the interchange evaluation, the roundabout was the preferred alternative. You don't have another alternative. I tried to explain that in these questions here. The option that when the intersection gets improved, it will be available.
So the state has the authority to dictate the mechanism we use there?
Correct. It is their road, it is their intersection.
I have a question. Number one, I guess if it is the state's intersection, why are we paying? The state has their intersection, certainly fix it. They don't want us to mess with the lights or do anything like that, right? Because years past, there's been issues with, hey, we don't want red light cameras and all that kind of stuff on their lights. So I guess my issue is, number one, is why are we the ones that are, even with a grant, and pay 35 or 37%?
I think some of this goes into, it would be, technically it's on the list, right, DOT's list to fix all intersections that have some issues of failure. It just comes to a money issue, right? They're going to take their money, the money that they have available to higher priority projects in the state. And they're going to allow cities, when development occurs, to have the developers then mitigate their impacts. So a developer then would be required to mitigate and fix this for the city. I mentioned Resolution 1991. Here was a developer's agreement that the developer, the council agreed to sign that agreement to they would pay in lieu of, because they would pay us higher tip rates, and then the city would then take on the mitigation to build the signal for them. So it is actually now our responsibility to fulfill that.
Because we built that into a contract with them.
Right. That was described in the Resolution 1991.
So, okay. You said we're locked into the roundabout at this point. But my understanding was the first time that this was brought to council, that it would, hey, this is going to come back before the council. We're just asking for right away. Right. And then the last meeting, I believe, where it was talked about, the question was brought up, hey, are we locked into this? Kind of, yeah. But I thought the first time it was, hey, there's a $5 million, I believe, for the traffic light versus $3 million for the roundabout. Obviously, you want to go with the lesser, but at the same time, if there's grant money out there for either, or if the roundabout doesn't look like maybe the best way to go forward, and I have yet to see my concerns where a roundabout that's as large as the intersection, certainly has as much traffic, both vehicle and pedestrian, through there. I haven't seen one yet that's doing it. I'm kind of scared to be the first on that, just with taxpayer money. One of the things I had a traffic engineer come out with me and look at the intersection and kind of talk with me about it, and he explained a lot of the issues as far as bringing everything to code versus why it was so expensive to do it. I understand that aspect. I'm still concerned about pedestrian safety with the roundabout. Specifically, I know they don't have as far to go before they get to the safe zone, but I think people are typically not used to stopping at a roundabout necessarily. You slow down for a roundabout, trying to look for traffic or whatever, and pedestrians, whether they, with a cart or with a stroller or whatever it is, it could be difficult to get across. So I'm concerned we're going to have lights or a protected crossing in some way that we could do that. I'll let you answer that first. I have a couple more.
Yeah. For example, if you have a high density population like you would at a university, this wouldn't be a good choice because you'd have so many people that are just literally walking from class to class. So crossing this many lanes, 4 lanes, even with it would probably be the desired choice. We don't have that much pedestrian traffic down here. So we don't have that high volume. The design of the roundabout is designed to make cars go 30 miles an hour or less. Okay, so they're literally driving speed that they're doing on these residential roads as people cross. Again, there's higher volumes. Every one of these crossings will have a rapid rectangular beacon, RRB. So that goes on when they enter the road. So the vehicles that are driving will see them. Did you notice that the way these design is in place, the crossings are actually in the throat. They're back from where people are entering the roundabout. So it's the smaller section of the road that they cross. Vehicles are already coming into this and they're slowing down. The more traffic you have, the slower the vehicles are even going. So it is much easier to stop a car that's going 20 miles an hour than obviously what's going out there today. The other design that was determined not to be feasible in the ICE study was widening of the intersection. Now, right now, it's like 100 feet to cross 410. As I wrote in this letter, the new one was adding lanes, right? Quite a few lanes. So we were adding 2 lanes on 214, 2 additional lanes, which would make it even more dangerous for a pedestrian to cross in that situation. And then an additional lane on 410. So the other alternative is actually making it more dangerous for pedestrians to try to cross all of that, right? And then vehicles are still moving, right? We have people turning right, even though there's a walk, right? You have those right turners that are coming right across you. So you have that. You also have people that run red lights, and when they're running them, they're not running them at 30 miles an hour. They're running them at 50. So if the pedestrian is out there, their chances of survival are nothing. I mean, they're just not going to happen. So I think slowing people down, allowing other means of traffic like bicyclists or pedestrians to be able to go through this intersection is safer in this environment than it is.
I guess in regards to the pedestrian stuff, the study that we did showed it was 2018 study, right? They had 1 pedestrian or something, but that was way prior to the apartments going in just down the street from them. And we have more growth potentially coming with a lot of townhouses, residents right off 214 Safeway. So I'm assuming there'd probably be more even than that. So I would think pedestrian traffic is only going to grow, right? Usually doesn't go down. So I'm concerned about that aspect and the fact that the test was only like 1 day. I don't know like when it was, if it was Christmas or I don't Christmas, but it was only 1 day, and you only had 1 pedestrian, and it was before the apartments. So I don't know how accurate that study, I guess, is now. So that's one, and then I just went through the roundabout down at Fife on Sunday. They just put in a brand new one there. It's 2 lanes, whatnot. So I want to try and get as good of an idea of what we're talking about as I can. And entering it, there's 2 separate signs as you enter it saying, do not drive next to trucks, basically, as you come in there. So I'm very concerned about how semi-trucks and vehicles are going to interact in the intersection. I'm concerned about, say, dump trucks with their super long trailers, how that's going to affect them. They're going to be taking up both lanes, basically. EPF&R just bought a brand new ladder truck. How's that going to get through there? And then if there is a collision, even though it's probably going to be minor, because now you're talking probably a side swipe or some T-bone accident, where you're basically clogging the entire intersection and everything's. So again, not seeing one working yet that has the amount of traffic and the size is my concern. I'm not against roundabouts. I'm concerned about this one.
When you were in Fife, did you notice any big vehicles going through?
I did, yes.
How did they negotiate?
They went through both lanes. Okay. So as they came in, right, they come in, they kind of try and make it as straight as possible. So they're gonna do that. They're gonna enter that second lane first, and then the first lane, the center lane, and then kind of exit out.
Any accidents while you were there?
No, but I only went through twice. So,
just wondering if you saw that, because those kind of things do slow traffic down. Vehicle that says when you see a big truck, don't compete with it. Sure, right? Again, slows down. And the idea is that we keep moving, traffic keeps moving through these things instead of the stop starting that we have right now. So I think overall, we want mobility. We want movement of traffic. It doesn't have to go 45 miles an hour. If you're going through a 25, you'll eventually get through it probably through faster than you do the stop and start. And as long as people obey the signs and say, don't compete with the big trucks, you're fine. Now, the other one is,
I think you might be asking a lot.
yeah. And people see that. I mean, as drivers, we recognize something, so we slow down, right, to avoid. But also the designs of these things, we have roll curves right on the apron in the middle and also on the curbing. That allows those bigger vehicles, those longer wheelbase vehicles, to just ride up on those curves to get through. Again, the radiuses are smaller here to slow people down, and you literally cannot go that fast through these intersections. You can't speed through them. They're designed not to speed through them. So then the bigger vehicles, they accommodate them, the bigger, wider wheelbase vehicles, with the roll curves so the tires will actually roll up onto the curves and then back down. So they are designed for these vehicles to negotiate.
Hey, do we have any other questions of council? Oh, who's up? Deputy Councilmember Swatman?
Okay, thank you. Did have a couple questions before we talk. Because, being on CDC, we talked about this a couple of times there. Really get the gist that talk about the shalls and the have tos, kind of the way we wrote it up was preferred. It says in our language it's preferred future intersection control, right? Then we have the ICE analysis as being the recommended intersection treatment. If there are requirements, that's fine. That would have been probably a little more clear if we had the state say this intersection shall be a roundabout. That's pretty clear because that's a mandate in the state. Probably not something we can deal with. Kind of what I'm hearing you say that, yeah, they pretty much said that, you're not going to build anything else there.
Right, yeah, so when we wrote it was our consultant that wrote the study, it went through the study, and that was the recommended, and then DOT then approved that recommendation.
Yeah, so they're stuck on this.
DOT has changed their drug intersections, and roundabouts are their number one priority. Signals are not. It used to be signals. Roundabouts have now taken over, and just recently they have changed their perspective on what they're going to want to treat signals. I mean, intersections. And then it has a lot of benefits as well, right? They're not maintaining signals anymore.
All the modeling and all the data tells me that this will work. But all the practical experience of people that actually deal with this stuff on day to day tells me that it's going to have problems. That's the hard part about it. I think there's going to be a gigantic learning curve that's out there. It doesn't sound like we have really a big choice. Sounds like this is what's going to be there at some point in time.
Correct. 224, that's the intersection in the middle of Easttown will be a roundabout as well. And 234th, which is a signal out the east end of town, that has been determined by DOT to be a roundabout that gets improved. Literally going to be roundabouts all the way to Enid Falls. That was the 18th study.
You have to pay for those two.
Yeah.
The middle one will come to you in the developer agreement. Stay tuned.
And more of it.
So, John.
Councilmember Ismail?
Yes, sir. So this is, being in our last language, it did say the different price and that it was option. So now you're telling us that that was a falsehood, that there is no option between a light and a roundabout.
Yeah, if I said that was optional, then I was.
Okay, so that was in the document. So now going forward, if we have no option as a city, then we should not be obligated to use our taxpayer money to pay for something we do not have an option for that is a state highway. If they want it done their way, then they should pay for it, and we should use our city funds to do something betterment for the community, wouldn't you say?
That's a good point you brought up. So we had, it goes back to impacting, when you do development in a city, right, you have impacts. And some of those impacts involve streets and intersections.
Sure.
So when the developer agreement came through for that Costco development, as well as I think it also included the land that's going to be residential behind Safeway.
Mhm.
There were several impacts that big development was going to um, create. One of them was this signal on 214. The developer agreement said they shall pay this much money in transportation impact fees. And the city will then build those mitigation projects. This is one of those mitigation projects.
But currently, we don't have a developer agreement that's current with that property
Yes, we do.
behind Safeway. I thought that hasn't been.
The developer
Fine.
agreement was signed several years ago.
Right, but it was being redone by the new owner, correct, possibly?
Wrong one. That's wrong. I think that's the wrong agreement you're talking about, council member. The one we're talking about is the one for 204th, correct? With
Mayor Johnson, the development agreement that John's referring to is the one for the WSU Forest. It is a valid development agreement until 2024. And the developer can act on that development agreement now in 2020. There is some extension language in the development agreement, but at this point it's still a valid development agreement. Additionally, everything we're doing in East Town, if we don't have concurrency at this intersection, could prevent that development from occurring too. Because as John said, the state will improve the intersection when they get to it. But if when the development occurs, it's not improved, we can't improve the development.
Has there been any traffic studies? I know that we've had some complaints this week regarding the traffic that comes in from Lakeland Hills, that comes up that hill down 214th and the backup that causes. And then the new developments of Bonney Lake Estates, White River Estates, the View by Vintage Apartments, and the next apartments that's coming back in there. Last I checked, the study was done in 2019, which we've had a great increase in traffic and car travel on that road since that time. Does this roundabout grow with the city? Like, does it allow for more traffic to come through? And does it lessen the times? Does it lessen the times that backup's going to go down 214 toward Lakeland that people are very frustrated with? Or is it the timing when you can synchronize light timing so everybody's waiting a consistent amount of time that you can move things faster?
Good question. So the signals are actually connected now. Roundabouts, your concern was actually the concern that brought Claw and Buckley together and said, hey, we got a problem. We got all these people coming down from, they want to go north, they want to come south, they're clogging us, they're clogging us down. So that was the impetus of a study done in, I think it was 2018. And that study came with a solution that roundabouts were going to go from 34th, our eastern border, all the way to Enumclaw to solve the problem. Better solve the problem. I mean, if you have just too much traffic, you have just too much traffic, right? And so we only have so many lanes, and eventually things are going to come very painful. And I don't think there's anything we can do with our current road situation to stop that thing. There's just a lot of people, right? Without building another road system. Like I-5 and 167. I'm not saying that big, but I'm just saying an example. Let's build another parallel road through here. DOT looked at that. Obviously, the cost of that with the other items on their list is just not there. So the roundabout does move traffic, not stopping and starting. I think that is the key, is keeping traffic moving. It's going to go slower as more traffic comes out, but where traffic is moving. That's the concept of these roundabouts, is to keep people moving.
Councilmember Clemens?
I'm just to clarify.
He's just warming up.
I know. So if we do not pass the grant tonight, let's say, just hypothetically, if we did not pass it, the conclusion would be that we are now responsible for 100% of the roundabout that needs to be finished by 2024 in order to be in alignment with the development agreement with the Wazoo Forest. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not sure if we have to be in agreement with it by 2024. I'm sure we have to have it done by. But it was part of it that we were going to do it. And the grant lessens the blow to the city.
plus the
Right.
financial effects. But if we did nothing and we waited for the state to pay for it instead of our citizens, then we would not be in agreement. Is that what I'm understanding what Mr. Sullivan said?
If you don't take the money now, you're going to pay for it. You have to look for another means to help pay for it, right? Because it's still the city's mitigation project to complete at $3.5 million. So if you can get $2.5 million from the TIP now, then you're money ahead later on. Everything costs more as you go down the road. Anyway,
Of course.
right?
But Mr. Sullivan made reference to the fact that we would be not, it would prohibit building in East Town if we did not follow through on this. Is that's what I was understanding? I'm sorry, that's what he's saying.
There's a state law called concurrency, and when intersections start to fail, which we have some failing legs on this correctly, not the whole intersection, legs, well, one leg at this time. When those intersections start to fail, the developer then is on the hook to fix all those failures. And so, and also we've known this has been an issue. So we've been collecting traffic impact fees now for many years to pay for this agreement. So developers who may have paid traffic impact fees, assuming that we're going to build this, and then we tell them we're not going to build it, creates some problems all along. So there are some, it's been built into our capital plans and our traffic impact fee plans for decades. Right? I don't know how long it's been on there, but I know since I've been here, improving this intersection has been on there at least the last.
All right. Councilmember McClymons.
Can you just be clear for me what happens if we don't pass this tonight?
Well, the TIP grant has to be turned in by August 13th. So I brought it to you on the 27th. Because if you want to wait 2 weeks, you can wait 2 weeks and then do it. And then the first one in August. But it needs to be it needs to be turned in by, I think it's August 13th to be considered this year. Okay? So otherwise you have to wait a whole year.
Okay. John, this is what I understand, is that if we do not accept this, then we lose out on $2.5 million to build an intersection that we're going to have to build anyway in 2024 or whatever. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what you're hearing.
But the intersection has to be a roundabout regardless, and not be an updated lane with 2 more lanes.
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, that's not the verbiage. That's not the verbiage that we have. I remember specifically the last time earlier this year when this came through. I'm going to share my frustration that Councilmember Lyman's and Ishmael and Councilmember Carter brought up. There was always this discussion about this $3 million versus $5 million from earlier this year. So again, it was an option then, or it was presented as an option then. And I specifically asked, is this just about the right of way? And you guys said yes. It was about the right of way, but then it was about the grant. And I said, well, if we go forward with the grant, then we're going to go forward with the project. So I voted no. I don't understand why now we're hearing that, because before it was an option. The light was an option earlier this year.
I must have done a poor job of explaining myself. So what I was trying to show you is the cost of the signal was X. The cost of the roundabout is Y. So the right of way for the signal is actually quite a bit more. There's quite a bit more pieces as you're widening quite a bit more. You need more land for the signal option. So that's what also helped make that more expensive project. You're also having to build 2 signals instead of just 1 roundabout. So I was trying to show you that these are the options that we had at one time, right? There's maybe I did a poor job of doing that, but I was trying to show you what it was before. The signals were going to cost this much, but now the roundabout is going to cost us a lot less.
Okay, in addition, I believe I know there was discussion that eventually they would pay for it. I mean, that conversation came up as well, that it wasn't like on us that we had to push forward. It was presented as, yeah, who knows how long it'll take for them to come through and make this. But it wasn't like we were on the hook for that.
When you say they, you meant DOT or somebody else?
What's that? I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, maybe I When you said they are gonna pay for it, did I impress that it was gonna be DOT?
Yes, DOT, eventually they would come around and they would eventually pay for it. That was the discussion.
I did a very poor job of explaining myself.
I have a little problem with this because of that. I think we were all under the impression that there was options. Now we're being told there's not an option. And it feels like it's being forced down our throats.
I think a couple of important things to remember, if I may, is that the project has been on the city's transportation. WashDOT is the owner of that facility, and therefore the owner of that intersection specifically, has had a change in policy since that time when I first went on our tip. And it was on our tip at that time as a signal. So I think that's probably where some of the confusion may lie. It originally was on our tip as a signal. However, WashDOT still gets the ability to overrule that because they own the facility. And so I can't speak to exactly when WashDOT decided to start heading in the direction of roundabouts as their preferential treatment for intersections. I don't know that. But certainly, that's the direction they are going now. They've built over 200 of them in Washington, and they are continuing on that path. So, and I do agree with John, as we've talked about this, the idea has always been to try and help contrast the costs, but in the conversations that we've had, it's never been that signal was still an option. So we probably could have worked to have made that clear if we somehow relayed that as though that was the case. It's not. WashDOT makes that call. They've decided it's going to be a roundabout, and that is unfortunately the only option that we have at this, unless we can convince them to change their mind. But
Can you point us to another roundabout that's already been built that deals with the same amount of traffic that from all directions, because that's a super busy intersection, both north, south, east, and west, that deals with that same amount of traffic that is working? I just don't want to be the experiment that, it went wrong. Sorry, Bonney.
Yeah. No, I totally understand your concern there, and I'm sure that we could work with WashDOT. Examples, it's probably going to take a little bit longer than the time we have necessarily to resolve the issue of signing the grant agreement, but we're happy to do that.
I asked for something like that several weeks. If we can find something, that it would be helpful for me. But right now, I'm not there.
Sure, and we can certainly bring something forward. I think that just anecdotal to that, the fact that WashDOT's constructed over 200 of them would lend one to believe that these are.
But there's roundabouts that are one lane all over the place.
Absolutely.
So I totally get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I just want to see one that's as big, dealing with the same. It's working.
Well, so Councilmember Carter, I had shared with you when you made several weeks ago.
I saw that.
Park. So there's Highway 16, Morgan Boulevard, dual lane, roundabout coming off a highway interchange, now high traffic. I believe Councilmember Watson has been out there. As I've made comments before, it's in the Costco complex in the Gig Harbor area. The Costco delivery trucks have to go through 4 roundabouts to get to the Costco loading dock. So I know larger vehicles can accommodate that. I can't speak to the ADT, the average daily traffic counts, but that is an example of a very high volume roundabout with split lanes, 2 lanes. It probably doesn't have the pedestrian. I think one leg maybe has the pedestrian. But that is an example that I shared with you previously.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw the video of that. I'm not seeing the amount of traffic that I see. I know 214, 410 very well. I was seeing very little traffic going through that intersection. I see it's a big roundabout, right? Get that. But yeah, I just want to see that type of traffic actually negotiating it.
And I'm sure there's about the one on Hawks Prairie. Interested down there, or is that
I'd have to check.
Virgin Diamond?
Yeah, I think the best thing for us to do, if you're looking to actually find something that's similar traffic volumes, I'm not going to be able to guess where that's located at. I would need to contact one. I did want to add, though, on the discussion of funding, it's certainly a possibility that WashDOT could pay for that intersection. But got to consider that the projects that are in line in front of that, and for WashDOT, they think, and they've got things like connecting SR 167 to I-5. and, other huge projects. Flat out, the intersection of 214th and SR 410 is not a priority. And they are content to sit on that forever because regionally there's just bigger fish to fry. And I know that's disappointing. I don't say that to minimize how important I think it is. But that's the reality of the situation when we're dealing with Washington. As we know here, even at the local level, at the state level too, funding is limited. And they have to make their priorities. And fortunately, that's kind of where we find ourselves, is low down on that priority chain. So just wanted to speak to the funding there.
But even at that, it's now it's sounding like it is an option.
I'm not sure how I made that sound like it.
Well, that's what I heard too.
That's exactly what I heard, right?
No. WashDOT could certainly come in at some point, but what I'm trying to illustrate is they're not going to. They have bigger priorities.
Okay.
You're talking statewide, though, that's kind of, you're going to get into how they're doing all their funding stuff and how the legislature allocates the monies, because there's probably, they've got classes of projects or tiers of projects, and this particular project is in some kind of a tier or a bucket or what have you of funding, because we're going to compete with a lot of other places for particular funding for this project. And Mr. Woodcock, I think, I don't know if you wrote it in here about, he's been already told he gets whatever it is, X number of millions, and you had to back off on that, so you probably get funding. These things are kind of coordinated with the funding. The granting agency already kind of knows that, oh, okay, we have all these projects, and these how they kind of fit together, hopefully. And they go through their ranking all the time. So this to compare the 167 project is probably not, because that's in a completely different bucket, completely different funding bucket, nothing to do with 214, 410 intersection. And it goes back to all these comments that you hear from the council members. And that's why I don't, like I said, the numbers that I've seen work, but it's the practicality of sitting out there in that intersection and literally seeing the 214 backed up northbound all the way to like almost to the island, and then you go experience one of these, and maybe that's a smaller one in Fife. I guess that must be a smaller one. It's obviously 3 legs right now. But you can tell when you get into the intersection, it's all of a sudden everybody's like stopped, or they have to wait to queue up in there. So when you got one queue that's like all these cars in it, they're always trying to get into it. We got the 410 people trying to go through to Buckley, and how do they mix? How it just doesn't seem to work.
Council, can I weigh in here? So I think we have a lot of debate on something that's been on the docket for a while. I would suggest that if you're not comfortable passing it, we have a little bit of time left, and I don't know what we talk about, but at the workshop, discuss those issues that are, I'd rather just not bring it forward to vote it down. I'd like to have it at workshops, find a way to make it move forward, but I'm not even sure that's going to matter. So if you want to table it to workshop, I think doing a motion would be good. If you do not feel so, then I think we need to move ahead with the vote.
We can do an action item there, especially I know it would be really helpful for me, like Councilmember Carter talked about, if there was an intersection that had that kind of volume, apparently there is. I've looked at it very accurately. Really nice to see that flow can go through there. I don't know exactly, I haven't reviewed our numbers, what the projected numbers are going to be in our intersection. And if you have the projected intersection numbers over here, you would think that I bet Mr. Woodcock probably could get one of the state people to use out all this intersection information of, oh, this one's the same, this one's the same, this one's the same, and they have that kind of a volume, and they actually. And when we go put this thing out there, it's going to be out there. There's no, it's not like an incorrect signalized intersection where you're going to end up moving an arm, right? You're going to put a roundabout in, and you got a roundabout in. I love the slip lanes. That seems to work really nice. Go through there, but I would definitely support the mayor's idea of moving this to the workshop as an action item. So,
I make a motion to table it.
Motion to table.
Okay.
Is there a motion?
Motion to table it. Angela seconded.
Angela seconded. That's without discussion, and we'll table to the next workshop. Correct?
Yes.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll move that to workshop. Thank you, Mr. Woodcock. We do have the next item is full council issues. Sadie.
Mr. Mayor, this is motion of the City Council directing the Parks Commission to undertake an essay contest with local high school students to select a new name for Midtown Park as authorized by BLMC 20-030K.
All right. Is there a motion to approve?
Seconded.
Who made the first motion?
I made the motion and Kelly seconded.
Awesome. All right, Jason, you want to weigh in here?
This was a request that came from the Parks Commission chair, and the Parks Commission, as it's not one of the prescribed duties of the Parks Commission, we believe that the prudent path was to come to City Council, have it specifically added to the work plan as authorized by the Bonney Municipal Code. Then the motion would then add it to the work plan. The Planning Commission or the Parks Commission would do the work, report back to the City Council by the end of the year. The City Council ultimately has final say on the naming rights, but the kind of legwork will be done by the Parks Commission.
Councilmember McClamens?
I think Councilman Dole had his hand up first.
Please go right ahead.
I didn't see that. Councilmember Dole, go first.
I love the idea. I think it's great. I think that would be phenomenal. Would this keep us from, right now our parks budget, we're trying to find ways to fund things every day, right? It's very tricky. So I love the idea. I think it's phenomenal. But would this ever keep us from getting some type of a, local sponsor to be able to name the park as well for a cost? And I know that gets tricky.
I would almost think it would be Ford sponsors Midtown Park. That way, there's some options for that contract renewal rather than
absolutely
permanently.
Yeah, I'm not a legal expert on naming rights for public facilities. The only one that I'm aware of that did it was Spartan Field, where they kept it as Spartan Stadium and then had the naming rights to the field. So I would say you could probably have both since the school district figured a way to do it. I don't know. I believe the city attorney.
Well, I think for you, it's kind of a hypothetical we can address if it actually comes down the pike. But I don't see how having the students come up with a name would prevent you from going a different. If the opportunity presented itself, you just have to deal with probably some pretty disappointed high school.
Yeah, no, so hypothetical, however you want to look at it, that would be the reason to have the question so we don't have those hard feelings. I think it's important to know or kind of have an idea. So I mean, we could do what Justin's saying, or where it is still what, but it's just sponsored by a local company.
Yeah, you can definitely do both. I mean, that'd be perfect to have the kids come up with a name and sponsored by X. It's great. I mean, that's a good deal. Councilmember Clemens, go ahead.
Yeah, I would like to ask that we also include the seniors at the senior center and the local homeschool organizations in the list of candidates to write essays. I think it'd be fabulous to see the historical or maybe the wisdom, as well as the zeal of youth. And then, we have a thriving homeschool group in our area, and I think it would be, can't leave them out. You may have to brush up on your Latin.
I would agree with that.
Any other discussion? I don't see anybody. I can't see Todd right now, but I got everybody else.
I'm good, Mr.
Oh, you're good. Anything else to add, Jason? Can we do that then, what Councilmember McClymonds is talking about?
I think what we would do is we would send out, make an announcement at the senior center that anybody who want to participate, and then we would put it on the city's website that it's open to all high school students. And then any high school student, whether they attend Bonney, White River, or Sumner, would be able to also submit.
Or homes.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that we put on the website any high school versus just going to the high schools and making emails. We would also put an announcement on the website.
Anybody under the age of 18 in the district, essentially in our free district.
Yeah.
And over the age of 65.
And over the age of 65.
Right. We'd have to figure out the language. Over the age of 14, under the age of 18.
They can get together and write something really cool. Old and
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, good ideas. Anything else for this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. We have no exec session or closed session. You guys all have a great week, and thank you for your time tonight. We're adjourned.
Remember when